Hi there, so I'm here today at Durham Book Festival with Kirsty Wark discussing her new book, The House on the Loch. Hello there, thank you for joining me today.
Delighted.
So to begin, can we talk about the description you give of landscapes in the book? You go into such an extreme amount of detail, and do you think that helped with the character development?
I think this book could only have been set there.
Yeah.
Because I had to have a place that was so atmospheric but quite lonely that ends up being a character in the novel. And so Loch Doon itself, which is this 6 mile stretch of really empty water, was the kind of perfect setting, because Walter had to be anchored there partly because his father was an engineer in the hydro project, he was an engineer in the hydro project. And you know, for something that happens right at the beginning of the book, which I just explained in the prologue, it helps to settle him on Loch Doon, and it is his undoing.
And I think that such a fabulous part of the book is the character development you give, and the way that you just feel that the characters could be real people almost. Now, did you have any methods to go about that?
I mean, I thought hard about the characters because I wanted to be realistic about what a family is like. And I don't think a writer's job is to give a message. But the one thing I would say is that in this book, I wanted to explore what happens when a trauma hits.
Yeah.
But also what it then reveals, and actually also to say that a trauma doesn't need to be at the end of everything in a family. Families are remade all the time. And every family has got problems and secrets and so forth. This one just has a lot. Has a lot. So for me, those family characters, those 3 generations, in a way are quite isolated themselves. Because Walter, what he does to try and make his kids stay in Loch Doon, he builds them cabins.
Yeah.
And that whole thing of trying to keep your kids close, families do it all the time, you know, for good and ill. And you know, as I say, there's a trauma at the beginning of this book, and it's only when the trauma hits that we start to reverse through the generations and wonder why it happened, wonder why we came to this point, wonder why some of the characters are so damaged already.
And do you think that one of the themes in the book, because you're discussing family there, is also like karma and what goes around comes around?
Yeah, well, that's interesting you should say that, because in Scotland we would call it slightly differently. I hadn't realised this, but at a book festival somebody said to me it's a very Presbyterian book. And I said, why is it such Presbyterian? And they said, because actions have consequences and you must take responsibility. And actually that's right. And as the book goes on, we find out about the actions and the consequences, and also eventually about taking responsibility. But I'm also saying that we're all guilty, no one's guilty, accidents happen. You know, for the best of intentions, no one sets out for awful things to happen. There are no bad people in this book.
No.
But there are people who have got all sorts of shades or gradations and actually are victims of their own circumstance, as well as being agents of their own misfortune.
And you see, I think that's true in everyday life. I mean, you can say that there's no bad people in the world, it's just people that do bad things.
Yes, you can say that, though I think about the whole question of responsibility is very important. Because if you say that there are no bad people in the world, there are people that do bad things, the people that are doing bad things know they're bad things, by and large, and have to take responsibility for them. But actually without giving too much away, Walter was in such a dilemma, wasn't he? Because I mean, you've read the book and I can't say more, but Walter was in such a dilemma. What should he do? You know, way back, you know, he meets Jean, he's besotted by her, he's a young engineer, she's much smarter than he is in a way, but she's much more troubled.
Yeah.
And in the end, what happens is, what you think is going to be this marvellous young marriage is beset by so many problems, partly because of Walter's cowardice.
And do you think that your job as a journalist helped you with creating these characters and gave you greater understanding?
I don't think that necessarily as a journalist, because I think that the process of writing and the process of writing for journalism are 2 completely different things.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, honestly, if you think about writing as a journalist, you're writing, it's going to be true for a start.
Facts. Yeah.
And also, you're writing quite in a spare fashion. And I know that with my first book, Elizabeth Pringle, I had to give myself permission to be descriptive. I found dialogue harder in the first book, less hard this time. But you've got to be prepared to let your imagination go. I knew I knew what the central trauma of this book was before I started. And I knew along the way what probably was the ending. But along the way, characters reveal themselves to me who have character traits of people I know, but they're not real people. We all know people who have had a difficult time, and they're maybe a difficult member of the family, but it's never discussed. Possibly less so now, but certainly in the 50s.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you say that. And I suppose for my last question, it would just be, as you were describing the difficulties of you branching out from journalism into this novel, how, and I'm doing this for young reviewers, so how would you give any advice to young writers branching out from just, you know, their hobby into writing a book?
Well, in a way I would say, one way of starting is write what you know. So I knew Galloway. Write what you know, either in terms of a storyline or a place or a character, and build it up. What my editor always said to me, it's more about layering. You get to know a person. It might be an odd piece of dialogue, might be a piece of description. One way I show a way into my characters is through clothes, actually, because I think clothes are very descriptive of a person's personality. And so write what you know first, and write what you're passionate about. And somebody gave me a great piece of advice, which is write every day. If it's only even one sentence, write every day.
I think that's really lovely, and you can tell that it's your passion. Well, thank you for being in this interview today.
Delighted.
I really enjoyed it.